Good day, I'm Shameka Yvonne Emirasol and I am the first reporter and we are the group Ganda Lang. And the given topic is the moral act. So first, learning outcomes. At the end of the lesson, the student should be able to capture and analyze feelings in personal moral experiences, compare reasonable and emotional components. Third, check real-life cases against the 7-step model that costs reasons and impartiality. Next, execute a good moral decision. Explain the role of mental frame in a moral experience. Articulate what virtue ethics is, and articulate what utilitarianism is and what justice and fairness are. According to Guy Thywhite's 2017, there are 3 ethical theories. So first, according to divine command theory, a moral act is one which God says is moral. For example, Jesus said, "Give unto Caesar what is Caesar's." So I should pay my tax bills. So by understanding it as a divine command, it becomes a moral obligation. Parang obligation mo magbayad ng bills, ng mga tax, parang ganun. Second is according to the categorical imperative, a moral act is one which should be universally beneficial if everyone did it. If everyone told the truth, the world should be a better place. So therefore, I should tell the truth. So the moral action is one that could be universally adopted without contradiction or negative consequences. So the last one is according to the act utilitarianism, a moral act is one which does the most good for the most people. If I throw the switch on the railway tracks, the runway train will run down only one person rather than 3. So this is because it minimizes overall well-being by minimizing harm and sufferings. We have also the examples of moral acts. So having someone from death, having sex with mutual consent, cooperating with people, helping a person in need. So like etong example of moral act, we all know like meron din parang respect, show respect to other people and love other people. Next, we are going to proceed in the virtue of ethics. Virtue ethics or arretaic ethics or theric from Greek pern, arete, are normative ethical theories which emphasize virtues of mind and character. Virtue ethicists discuss the nature and definition of virtues and other related problems. The Western tradition's key concept is derived from ancient Greek philosophy. This concept includes arete or arete, excellent or virtue, phronesis, practical or moral wisdom, and eudaimonia, meaning flourishing. It is concerned with any other action as well with emotions and emotional reactions, choices, values, desire, perceptions, attitudes, interests, expectations, and sensibilities. To possess a virtue is to be a certain sort of a person with a certain complex mindset. So virtue ethic holds the individual's ethical behavior should be measured by their trait-based characteristics such as the honesty, courage, and wisdom, love, rather than by the consequences of their actions or the particular duties they are obliged to obey. This approach emphasizes cultivating good virtues. For the last part that I'm going to report, it is the different kinds of justice. Justice then is a central part of ethics and should be given due consideration in our moral lives. In evaluating any moral decision, we must ask whether our action treat or person's equality. If not, we must determine whether the difference in treatment is justified. Are the criteria we are using relevant to the situation or hence? But justice is not the only principle to consider it making ethical decisions. Sometimes principles of justice may need to be overridden in favor of other kinds of moral claims, such as rights or society's welfare. Nevertheless, justice is an expression of our mutual recognition of each other's basic dignity and an acknowledgement that we are to live together in an interdependent community. We must treat each other as equals. So, to sum it up, justice can be broadly categorized into distributive, retributive, and restorative justice. The distributive justice focuses on the fair allocation of resources. Retributive justice concerns punishment for wrongdoings, and restorative justice aims to repair harm caused by the wrongdoing. That's all for my part. Thank you so much. And the other reporter will discuss the other topic. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I am Jamari Marcos. My topic is significance of feelings in moral behavior. Our emotions play a big role in our moral decisions if we don't always realize it. Experts believe that it's impossible to make important moral choices without emotions. Feelings like guilt, shame, or embarrassment often push us to do what is right. Society tries to guide us to make good choices through laws, religious teachings, and rules, but in the end, we make the final decisions in our own minds. While logical thinking helps, our emotions such as fear, disgust, or affections is also strongly influence our moral choices. Next, reason and feelings in ethics. Ethics is about understanding what is right and good. To do this, we think about our feelings and reason through them. Even when we try to ignore emotions, they are still part of our decision making. Moral philosopher Mary Midgley explains that rationality or logic and emotions must work together. We cannot separate them. For example, when we feel empathy for someone, we recognize them as a person who deserves care and respect. Without emotions like compassion or concern, we would not feel responsible for helping others in need. In fact, our moral values come from emotions first and moral rules follow later. Empathy, being able to feel what others are feeling, is a special emotion. It helps us understand others as real people with their own thoughts and feelings. When we feel empathy, we see others as important and worthy of respect. Helping others often comes from these feelings of empathy. In fact, our sense of duty to help usually starts with caring emotions. The idea of what's morally right came after people started feelings for one another. Still, it's important to test our conscience. That means explaining our moral choices to others and listening to their concerns. This is very important when it comes to close relationships and even issues like the environment.
Good day, everyone. My name is Fatima Kabsha Dail, and I will be discussing the impartiality and the two moral claims. Impartiality, when it comes to morality, we should be impartial, and yet almost everyone thinks it's appropriate to treat certain people like those who are dear and dear to them in a special way. For example, while having food and clothing is clearly a good thing, it seems that we have a special obligation to our children over the children of strangers to make sure that they have food and clothing. Impartiality in morality means treating all individuals equally and making ethical decisions without favoritism or bias. However, real life situations often require a balance between impartiality and partiality. For example, while moral reasoning suggests we should help all people equally, it is generally accepted that we have special obligations to our close family and friends. Next, we have two moral claims, which is the impartiality and partiality. Impartiality, when it comes to morality, we should be impartial. Impartiality means treating everyone equally without favoritism or bias. It is about making fair and just decisions based on universal moral principle rather than personal relationships or preference. For example, a teacher grading students' exams should be impartial, ensuring that every student is evaluated fairly based on their performance, not on personal feelings. Next, we have partiality. Partiality, it's appropriate to treat certain people in a special sort of way. Partiality means giving special treatment to certain people, usually those with whom we have close relationships, such as family and friends. It acknowledges that in some situations it is morally acceptable or even required to prioritize certain individuals over others. An example in partiality, a parent prioritizing their child's well being over a stranger's by ensuring they have food, shelter, and education. In moral decision making, a balance between impartiality and partiality is often necessary. Some situations require fairness and equality, while others recognize special obligations to loved ones. That would be all. Thank you.
So, good day po everyone. I am Mark Juice Obeliscao and I will be reporting or talking about the 7 steps in moral reasoning model. So, Michael Davis 1999 identified 7 steps guide to ethical decision making. First is state the problem. Second is check the facts. Third is identify relevant factors. Fourth is develop a list of options. Fifth is test the options. Use some of the following tests. Sixth is make a choice based on steps 1 to 5, and 7 is review steps 1 to 6. So, this gives the basic process for thinking through ethical problems step by step so your decision is clear, logical, and well thought out. The 7 steps in moral reasoning model by Michael Davis helps guide ethical decision making. It involves identifying the problem, checking facts, considering all factors, and developing and testing possible solutions. You then choose the best option and review your process. So next slide is same naman po, 7 steps in moral reasoning model. Iba lang yung nakalagay dito. First is harm test. Does this option do less harm than the alternatives? Next is publicity test. Would I want my choice of this option published in the newspaper? Next is defensibility test. Would I defend my choice of this option before a congressional committee or committee of peers? Next is reversibility test. Would I still think this option was a good choice if I were adversely affected by it? Next is colleague test. What do my colleagues say when I describe my problem and suggest this option as my solution? Last two is professional test. What might my profession's governing body for ethics say about this option? And lastly is organization test. What does my company's ethics officer or legal counsel say about this? So this helps you test if your decision is truly ethical by asking different important questions before you choose. When testing options, you ask questions like, does it do less harm? Can I defend it publicly? Would I still choose it if I were affected? What would others, like colleagues or professionals, say about it? So that is my report in this slide, and thank you po.
Good day everyone, I am Marifel Agdamio from BSN1 BISO. I'll be discussing the emotion and reason. Emotion and reason, there is no consensus about the standard use of reason, but it is a frequently used as a contrast or complementary term of faith. On this view, reason stands for the faculties of rational reflections, sensation, and experience, memory and inference, and any a priori or a posteriori judgment that may be exercised without relying on a religious faith that is unsupported by reason. In this schema, faith is beyond reason, but it may or may not be incompatible with reason. Such usage is not, however, uniform, for some philosophers argue that the content of religious faith is supported by the reason. The word reason does not have one single definition everyone agrees on. Often, it's used in contrast to faith. Reason is generally understood as using logic, evidence from our senses and experiences, and memories to make judgments. It's about thinking things through logically, while faith is belief in something without needing proof. Sometimes, faith and reason are seen as separate and possibly conflicting things. Other times, people believe faith can be supported by reason. There's no single right answer. Different people and philosophers have different ideas about how reason and faith relate. So next, concise. Concise is the power to discern what appears to be morally right or wrong, a virtue or a vice. So concise is our inner sense of right and wrong. It helps us decide what's good or bad. Role of mental frames in moral experiment. A thought experiment. Let's assume you represent the Philippines negotiations with a person. He offers you a deal. He will give you a technological invention, a breakthrough that will increase the country's wealth, make us more efficient, more productive, and make our lives much more fun. The only thing he wants in return is that you let him swoop in every year. Take 40,000 people at random and kill them. Do you take the deal? If you said no, then you'll be too late. Because in fact, you have already taken the deal. It's your car. Now that you see it from the perspective, are you willing to give up your car? Think of framing. as a mental filter. It's how your brain selects, organizes, and interprets informations. This is not a conscious process, it happens automatically. What you focus on becomes the foreground, and everything else fades into the background. This foreground and background division drastically affects your understanding and judgment. So, the cardinal moral framing, this example highlights how moral judgment are influenced by framing. The deal is presented with a strong focus on the benefits, technological advancement, increased wealth. The horrific cost, 40,000 deaths, is initially downplayed or placed in the background. Only by reframing the situation, shifting the focus to the deaths, do we fully grasp the ethical implications. This shows how easily we can overlook negative consequences when the positive aspects are emphasized. Another example, a dog exists solely in your brain. The white and dark spots that make up the dog's body are the same dark and white shade as the surrounding terrain. So imagine you're looking at same rocks and dirt. Your brain is a dog made up of light and dark spots. Even though those parts are the same colors as the rocks and dirt, the dog is not really there. Your brain is making it up, creating a pattern where there is only randomness. This shows how our brains actively create meaning even when the information we get from our eyes is not clear.
Good day everyone, I'm Mergerma A. Lakibol, a BSN 1B student, and my topic is about developing the will. So in order for us to develop the will, we must first understand what is will. So according to this, will is the center of who we are. Will is who we are, you are his will. Both spiritual development and self-development, despite any distinction that might be made between them, entail the development of will. Indeed, everything we do is done by will. Usually we think of will in the active sense or of self-control or of working toward and attaining goals. But there are many natural modes of will. Active, receptive, and synergic combination of those two. And there are aberrant modes driven by centeredness such as self-will and identification. So basically, what does it mean is that will is like a motivation for us to do the action so that we can attain our desired goal. Moreover, will is often regarded as the driving force behind our actions, decisions, and overall identity. It encapsulates our desires, intentions, and the capacity to act upon them in both spiritual and self-development contexts. Cultivating our will is essential for personal growth and fulfillment. And it also says there that there are a lot of types of this will. So these are the following modes of will. Number one is we have active will. This is the most recognized form of will, characterized by intentional actions aimed at achieving specific goals. For example, an individual may set a goal to run a marathon. This requires training, discipline, and perseverance, qualities that reflect active will. Then number two, we have the receptive will. This mode involves openness and acceptance. It's about being receptive to experiences, ideas, and feedback from others. For instance, a person may seek therapy to understand their emotions better. Here, receptive will is crucial as it allows them to absorb insights that can lead to personal growth. Then, we also have the synergic will. This combines both active and receptive modes. It recognizes the effective actions, often requires collaborations and adaptability. For example, in a team project at work, one might actively contribute ideas while also being open to feedback from colleagues. So now that we understand the definition of will, we can now proceed to developing will. So here are the steps and skills on how to develop will. So number one is we have setting goals. The first step in developing will is identifying clear, meaningful goals. This requires introspection and understanding what truly matters to you. For instance, someone might aim to improve their health by losing weight or adopting a healthier lifestyle. The next is we have working towards goal. So once goals are set, active steps must be taken to achieve them. This might involve creating a structured plan such as following a diet or exercise regimen and committing time and energy to it. Then third is monitoring progress. So regularly assessing progress is essential for maintaining motivation and making necessary adjustments. For example, keeping a journal to track dietary habits or exercise routines can provide insights into what works and what doesn't. Then it also says here that the participate in moral behavior is based on the golden rule. So since the setting or developing will is a moral behavior, so it says here that golden rules uh, is involved in it. So it says here that the golden rule states, do unto others what you would have them do unto you, is commonly perceived as one of Jesus' greatest moral teachings. It's overrated. So whatever you wish that men would do to you, do so to them. For this is the new law and the prophets. Matthew 7:12. And as you wish that men would do to you, do so to them. So the golden rule is a primitive guideline to moral behavior. It tells us to measure our actions by our personal values, which saves the trouble of considering the values of others. So when a person wishes others to do more of his liking, it is easy to rationalize aggressive action as being for his own good. So this can mean that the golden rule can be perceived differently by different people. So not everyone have the same principles in their life. So the golden rule is just based on their own belief and understanding.
So, good day everyone. My name is Katiza Masilan, and today I will be reporting about the negative golden rule. So, the negative golden rule is an improvement over the golden rule stated in Confucius' Analects. Do not do to others what you would not like yourself. Then there will be no resentment against you, either in the family or in the state. While with its emphasis on restraint, it cuts down on the aggressive acts which the Golden Rules enables, but it shifts aggression in the opposite direction toward asceticism. So the sentence, do not do to others what you would not like yourself, this preventative approach aims to minimize harm and avoid actions that would cause resentment. Unlike the golden rule, which can sometimes be interpreted as encouraging active benevolence, the negative golden rule prioritizes restraints. It suggests avoiding actions that could lead to conflict or negative consequence for others. It's also mentioned its application within the family and the state, highlighting its relevance to social harmony and governance. By preventing harmful action, it contributes to a more peaceful and stable society. While the negative golden rule reduces outwardly aggressive action, it doesn't suggest passivity. It acknowledged that aggression can be redirected inward, potentially leading to asceticism, which is self discipline and self denial. This suggests a focus on self improvement and inner peace as a means of achieving social harmony. Secondly, the negative golden rule provides the justification for maintaining tradition, such as religious tradition. Whether this is good or bad depends on how much it is enforced against your will. So, a framework for making ethical decisions, ethics provides a set of standards for behavior that helps us decide how we ought to act in a range of situations. In a sense, we can just say that ethics is all about making decisions. So, it states that the negative golden rule provides a basis for upholding traditions. This suggests that by avoiding actions that would harm or disrupt established practices, the negative golden rule contributes to the stability and continuity of traditions. It acknowledged that whether upholding tradition is good or bad depend on how they are enforced. This implies that the golden rule itself doesn't inherently dictate whether traditions are beneficial or harmful. The effectiveness and fairness of their implementation plays a crucial role in determining their ethical value. It also emphasized that the ethical implication of upholding tradition hinge on how they are enforced against your will. This suggests that the ethicality of tradition is tied to the degree of individual autonomy and freedom. If traditions are enforced in a way that restricts or violates individual rights, they may be considered unethical. It emphasized that ethics provides standards for behavior that guide their action in various situations. So last, decisions about right and wrong permeates everyday life. Ethics should concern all levels of life, acting properly as individuals, creating responsible organization and government, and making our society as a whole more ethical. This document is designed as an introduction to making ethical decisions. It recognized that the decisions about right and wrong can be difficult and may be related to individual contexts. It first provides a summary for the major sources for ethical thinking and then present a framework for decision making. It highlights that decisions about right and wrong are fundamental to daily life. This emphasizes that ethical considerations are not separate from our everyday action but rather integral to them. Ethics is presented as relevant to all societal levels, individual conduct, organization practices, and governmental policies. This suggests that ethical principles should guide action at every level of society to promote responsible behavior and a more ethical society as a whole. It explains that the document aims to serve as an introduction to ethical decision. It acknowledged the complexity of deciding between right and wrong, noting the influence of individual contexts and circumstances. The document is also structured to first provide an overview of the major sources of ethical thought and then to present a framework for making ethical decisions. This suggests a methodical approach starting with the foundational knowledge before providing practical guidance. In essence, uh, it underscores the importance of ethics in shaping individual and societal behavior.
Good day everyone, my name is Haiba Majid and today I will be reporting about the virtue ethics according to Aristotle. Aristotle first used the term ethics to name a field of study developed by his predecessors Socrates and Plato. Philosophical ethics is the attempt to offer a rational response to the question of how humans should best live. Aristotle regarded ethics and politics as two related but related fields of study, since ethics examines the good of the individual, while politics examines the good of cities. So, Aristotle was a Greek philosopher who studied how people should live their lives. He built on the ideas of earlier thinkers like Socrates and Plato. Aristotle believed that the ethics is the study of what is right and wrong, and politics, the study of how societies work, are related but different. Ethics look at what is good for individuals, while politics look at what is good for communities or cities. Aristotle argues in Book 2 of the Nicomachean Ethics, the man who possesses character excellence does the right thing at the right time and in the right way. Bravery and the correct regulation of one's bodily appetites are examples of character excellence or virtue. So, acting bravery and acting temperately are examples of excellence activities. The highest aims are living well in eudaimonia, a Greek word often translated as well-being, happiness, or human flourishing. Like many ethicists, Aristotle regards excellence activity as pleasurable for the man of virtue. So, in his book, The Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle explained that a person who has a good character or virtue will do the right thing at the right time and in the right way. Like for example, being brave or controlling one's desire are signs of good character. When someone acts bravely or show self-control, so it means they are demonstrating virtue. Aristotle believed that the ultimate goal in life is to achieve eudaimonia, a Greek word that means living well, being happy, or flourishing as a human being. He thought that doing good things is enjoyable for virtuous people. Aristotle emphasized that virtue is practical and that the purpose of ethics is to become good, not merely to know. Aristotle also claims that the right course of action depends upon the details of a particular situation, rather than being generated merely by applying a law. The type of wisdom which is required for this is called prudence or practical wisdom, Greek phronesis, as opposed to wisdom of a theoretical philosopher, Greek Sophia. Aristotle said that being virtuous is about practice and action, not just knowing what is right. He also emphasized that the right choice depends on a specific situation you are in, rather than just following a set rule. To make these good choices, people need a special kind of wisdom called prudence or practical wisdom, in Greek phronesis. This is different from theoretical knowledge, which is more about understanding concepts and ideas. So, Aristotle's virtues ethics teaches us that being a good person involves developing our character through practical and making wise choices based on our circumstances. That's it. Thank you.
Good day everyone, I'm Kyla Salim. Today I'm going to report Virtue Ethics according to St. Thomas Aquinas. Virtue Ethics according to St. Thomas Aquinas. Budziszewski, 2017, made a commentary on Thomas Aquinas' Virtue Ethics. His commentary is written in his book, Commentary on Thomas Aquinas' Virtue and Ethics. This is the description and commentaries of the author. Although St. Thomas Aquinas famously claimed that Summa Theologiae was written for beginners, contemporary readers find it unusually difficult. Now, amid a surge of interest in virtue ethics, J. Budziszewski clarifies and analyzes the text, challenging arguments about the moral, intellectual, and spiritual virtues, with a spotlight on the virtue of justice. In what might be the first contemporary commentary on Aquinas' virtue ethic, he juxtaposes the original text with paraphrase and detailed discussion, guiding us through its complex arguments and classical rhetorical figures. So, Budziszewski wrote a commentary on St. Thomas Aquinas' Virtue Ethics because Aquinas' work, particularly the Summa Theologiae, is a complex and challenging for modern readers. The Summa Theologiae is a massive work of theology written by St. Thomas Aquinas in the 13th century. It attempts to systematically organize and explain Christian doctrine based on the scripture, reason, and the teaching of the church fathers. Aquinas intended it to be a comprehensive guide for students of theology, but its dense language and complex arguments make it difficult for modern readers to understand. Budziszewski commentaries aim to make Aquinas' idea on virtue ethics more accessible to contemporary readers. He provides paraphrases of the original text, detailed discussion, and explanation of Aquinas' complex arguments. He also focuses on the virtue of justice, which is a central theme in the Aquinas work. Budziszewski's commentary is significant because it helps to bridge the gap between Aquinas' 13th century thought and modern philosophical debates. It makes Aquinas' ideas on virtue ethics relevant to contemporary discussion about morality, ethics, and human flourishing. Different kind of justice. Justice then is a central part of ethics and should be given due consideration in our moral lives. In evaluating any moral decision, we must ask whether our actions treat all persons equally. If not, we must determine whether the difference in treatment is justified. Are the criteria we are using relevant to the situation at hand? But justice is not the only principle to consider in making ethical decisions. Sometimes principle of justice may need to be overridden in favor of other kinds of moral claim, such as rights or society's welfare. Nevertheless, justice is an expression of our mutual recognition of each other's basic dignity, and an acknowledgement that if we are to live together in an interdependent community, we must treat each other as equals.
Good day, my name is Almina M. Musa, and today I am going to report the Kantian virtue is ascribed to the deontological theory of the German philosopher Immanuel Kant. Kantian virtue ethics, this theory created by Immanuel Kant, says that the only truly good things is having a good will, wanting to do what's right. An action is only good if it allows a rule or that could apply to everyone without causing a problem. Ang categorical imperative, ito ang pangunahing ideya ni Kant kung saan ay isang pagsubok upang makita kung ang isang kilos ay moral na mabuti. So, ito ay may dalawang pangunahing bahagi. Number 1, universal usability. This principle suggests that any moral rules should be applicable to everyone in all situations. It's like a universal law that applies to everyone regardless of their personal belief or circumstances. Think of it like a test. If you can imagine everyone in the world doing the same action, then it's likely a morally acceptable action. For example, lying or pagsisinungaling. Imagine a situation where you need to lie to get something you want. If everyone lied to get what they wanted, the whole system of trust and communication could break down. This shows that lying can be universalized because it could lead to negative consequences for everyone. Number 2, humanity. Kant believed that all human beings have inherent dignity and worth. We should treat each other with respect, recognizing that we are all rational beings capable of making moral choices. This means we should never treat another person as a mere means to an end. We should always respect their autonomy and their ability to make their own decision. So like for example, may group activity kayo and kailangan mag-share ng individual opinions or ideya. Then yung isang groupmate mo, medyo malayo yung idea niya sa topic. Pero instead na mag-disagree ka sa idea niya, yung ginawa mo is kinonsidered mo, hindi dahil naaawa ka. It because you show value and respect their humanity and their ability to contribute to the discussion and worth of every individual. So, in short, Kantian ethics focus on following rules that are fair and respectful to everyone. It's about having good intentions and actions in ways that could be universally applied without causing contradiction or harming others. Thank you.